Keep moving. We'll win this war, but we'll win it only by fighting and showing the Germans that we've got more guts than they have or ever will have. We're not just going to shoot them. We're going to rip out their living goddamn guts and use them to grease the treads of our tanks. How very inspirational. So you want to cross the channel and show the Germans what for. Storm the beaches of Normandy, strike hard and fast during Operation Cobra, and repel the German offensive at the Battle of the Bulge. Well, you've come to the right school for that. Starting flames of war, and you want an endless supply of ammunition to spearhead the liberation of Normandy, and to field a fully motorised army driven forward by American industry. Of course your road has led you here. Welcome to another video in the Flames of War Getting Started in 2024 series by Overlord Games. If you haven't already, then please don't forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel, as it really helps to grow our community and get the word out to more players. In today's video, we'll be breaking down the American late war starter boxes, and we'll also be including Hit the Beach, the American side, although it does come with Germans and Americans. We'll be looking at the savings given by the starter boxes for the late war boxes, and discussing the price as RRP, that's recommended retail price. It's of course easier to find cheaper sources for your Flames of War, such as overlordgames.co.uk, but for the purposes of the video, it's easier to reference the RRP, as it will give it a bit of more longevity, and also we don't know what store you'll be buying it from, so if we use the RRP then the numbers should follow through no matter where you buy it. Hit the Beach is a great introduction to playing Americans in late war, and is aimed around the Normandy book, that's D-Day American. But I often see this question once people have bought it. I've just got Hit the Beach and I want to play Americans. Well, what next? In the video we're going to give you my answer to the question, but bear in mind that there will be other answers, and this is just one opinion. But let's break down Hit the Beach. Hit the Beach gives you an M4 Sherman tank company with 8 Shermans. 3 of these Shermans can be built as the upgraded M4 A1 76mm Sherman. The Sherman formation has 2 75mm as your HQ, 3 of the 76mm Shermans as your first combat platoon, and a second combat platoon of 3 75mm Shermans. This is a reasonable formation for the 50-ish points once you add in the paratroopers that will be discussed later on, which is the points that the box is aimed for. It provides approximately 2 50-point armies. However, if you're going to move to higher games in terms of points, you will need to add more to those Shermans. Hit the Beach has 8 Shermans with enough upgrades to make 3 of them as 76mm Shermans. As you're watching this video, you're thinking ahead, and that's great. I'd personally build 3 76mm from this box, but please note you could build all 8 as 75s if you chose to. So for example, if you ended up with a second Hit the Beach box, you wouldn't need to build them all as 76mm, you could have extra 75s. That's because the 76s come on an upgrade sprue. The box also contains a platoon of paratroopers, which are taken as a support option. These are quite solid troops. They have mortars and bazookas, giving them a little bit more flexibility, and an artillery barrage. They're fearless and veteran, making them extremely reliable, but they are 14 points, so they are expensive. That makes you a 50-point list from this box. But how do you take it further? The natural choice to expanding your Hit the Beach collection will be an additional platoon of Shermans. We're going to consider what is a good choice to continue building the Sherman Armoured Company. You'll definitely want some artillery, such as priests for removing infantry that gets dug in on objectives, and a spearhead unit to extend your deployment zone and allow you to threaten objectives in games that have that rule. There is a box that provides all of these elements, and it's the box we're going to discuss next. It's called the American Combat Command box, which in my opinion is one of the best starter armies which Battlefront has ever produced. The late war starter box for Americans, Combat Command, which is aimed at D-Day, is in my opinion one of the best starter boxes out there because it's great value for money and all of the choices fit thematically together. The set is aimed at playing Americans in D-Day and represents the charge of Operation Cobra. Furthermore, this set is also good for Americans when playing with the Bulge book as well. Hear me out. Some of the M4s might be the older version, but honestly I don't think too many people are going to notice as long as you let them know if they ask. And I would genuinely field this entire force as an army in D-Day. I'd consider buying 2 if I had to start Americans completely from scratch again. The army box retails at £90. The total savings is £80 because there's £170 worth of models in the box. This has been listed above. That's a fantastic saving for what you're getting, and it's a box that you could, in theory, double up on. After all, 6 priests, 1 unit of 6, or 2 units of 3, quite a cool combo. M10s, you can never have enough M10s, especially as they're black box for the Americans. The armoured rifle platoon is an absolute lifesaver, as we'll go on and talk about later. And honestly, you can never have enough Stuarts and Shermans for your American lists. The formation in this box is 2 75mm Shermans as your HQ unit, 3 76mm Shermans, and a unit of 3 Stuarts. That's quite a fragile basic formation and can really do with being bulked out. I would either buy 2 of this box, or I would combine it with the Hit the Beach set. If I combined it with the Hit the Beach set, I would actually end up with 2 75mm for the HQ, 5 75mm Shermans, and then a unit of 5 75mm Shermans. That gives me 1 left over that could be used as an OP. We're now going to break down the units from the Combat Command set. We'll break down each unit and see what its strengths are and where its role fits in the list. The first unit is the infamous M4 Sherman. It's now a slightly outdated design, but works well due to it being inexpensive. Its 75mm gun has rate of fire 2 and anti-tank value 10. American Shermans have a special rule called stabilizers, which allows the tank to keep its rate of fire 2 while doing a tactical move, but incurs a penalty of an additional +1 to hit. That means that this tank can move up and get onto flanks a lot easier, and you'll still retain your 2 dice to hit. It also has a front armour of 6, which means that it's reasonable against tanks such as the Panzer IV, but it's probably not going to win in a long-term, long-range slug-out. The next unit is the Sherman M4A1 76mm gun Sherman. It's an upgraded Sherman with a front armour of 7 and an anti-tank 12 with no HE or smoke. This vehicle gives your force with some anti-tank punch that can begin to threaten Tigers and Panthers from the front. It also comes with a stabiliser rule, so once again can still fire at its rate of fire 2 while moving. Anti-tank 12 at long range is going to be bounced by a Tiger and a Panther on a 2, but at least you've got the opportunity to crack them open. It's the sort of tank that's probably going to end up sitting back and waiting while your other Shermans flank around the side. The M5 Stuart is another fast tank that has a tactical movement of 12. It also benefits from the stabiliser rule, which means that it can move and still have its rate of fire 2, but it's an additional +1 to hit. When you compare this to the British Stuart, of course, which is overworked, this M5 Stuart is much better and is a much better tank at getting onto the flanks. It's also front armour 4, so don't try and engage people at long range and have a shootout. That's not the role of this tank. It's important to note that there are 2 types that you can take here for both the Shermans and the Stuarts, and that's you can either be hit on a 3+ aggressive, or you can be a veteran formation that's careful 4+. So one costs more points, the other is cheaper and will allow you to have more. That's down to your playstyle and what sort of list or regiment you're trying to represent. Next up is potentially one of the strongest choices available to American D-Day. It's the Armoured Rifle Platoon. Now, the list of weapons that it has: 6 Garand stands, 5 bazooka stands to stop those pesky tanks, 2 LMGs for that extra firepower, 1 60mm mortar, plus backing it up are 5 half-tracks that give you more machine guns and the ability to move. And that's all for 15 points if it's hit on aggressive 3+, or 19 points when hit on 4s because it's careful. The 5 half-tracks, you've got 2 50 cal half-tracks and 3 30 cal half-tracks. I mean, it's literally a mini army in one formation that can deal with most threats. It's a Swiss Army knife. It can attack and defend. The bazookas make them a very real threat to tanks. 5 bazookas is no joke. The mortar allows you to pop down suppressing fire onto infantry, pin enemy guns, and the machine guns allow you to stop any advancing infantry with that rate of fire 5. This is a solid formation whether you're fielding them at veteran or at regular, and if I'm honest, I think it's one of the strongest choices across the D-Day range. M10 tank destroyers carry an anti-tank 12 weapon with firepower 3+. Their front armour of 5 though means they can't be duking it out with opposing tanks in the front. It would require a 6 for them to bounce the AT-11 shot coming from a Panzer IV, so they need to be relying on cover and the flanks. Their special ability, which is called Seek, Strike and Destroy, lets them perform a shoot and scoot order after they've managed to perform a blitz move. That means they can move into line of sight with the blitz move and then fire at their rate of fire of 2. Then they can use the shoot and scoot to get back into cover. So very much like stormtroopers, if you've played Germans yet. So, M10s, they also carry another little weapon, which is the M10 50 cal machine gun. Rate of fire 3, anti-tank 4. So they can also pick off half-tracks and destroy infantry if needed. I can't stress how many people overlook this when they start Flames of War and don't realise that they actually have on lots of their units an amazing machine gun. So, the artillery choice now, the Priest. Clocking in at 8 points for 3 vehicles and also maximum unit size of 6. So you could have a 6 platoon which would give you re-rolling failed hits. This is a powerful artillery unit which benefits from the time on target rule, which if ranged in on the first attempt will force the enemy to re-roll successful saves. The firepower of 3+ also helps. Priests are great for pinning infantry and digging them out of their cover and foxholes. It also has the 50 cal machine gun, which once again, good at taking out half-tracks and damaging infantry if you so need to. Although their front armour 3 means that you don't want to have them out in the front, because they will get blown up. It's also very much worth mentioning that both of the Shermans, plus some of the other units in the American book, like the M10 tank destroyers, and even the Priests, benefit from having a 50 caliber machine gun, which is a range 20, rate of fire 3, anti-tank 4 weapon. Its firepower is only 5+, but it's absolutely devastating, so your tanks almost get an extra roll. If your Priests are forced to, they could go up and engage enemy half-tracks, for example. I mean, the 50 caliber machine gun can often be overlooked by new players who don't realise it's there, but your 50 caliber machine gun, plus the fact that Shermans get normal MGs as well, you can lay down a hail of fire that can both pin and destroy opposing units. I believe that this starter set is probably one of the best produced by Battlefront because it will create you a strong American force and a great starting point. It's got a bit of everything. Can be flexibly combined with Hit the Beach with a second one, or you could choose to add other units as you fancied. So you could even add another 2 platoons of the motor rifles and end up with a motor rifle platoon, which I still think is a very strong choice when playing American armies. You could also use the box for the Bulge as well. I know that the rivet counters might be a bit however, the Sherman 76mm are Sherman 76mm. It's just there's a slight difference between the 2 hull variants, which honestly, not that many people are going to notice. There's also a command card to allow you to take the M4 Sherman from this book in Bulge. So it's just a great little starting point to build off of your collection of Americans, especially if you're not going for a single list. Next we start to look at the Bulge American book. The Bulge American starter set is the American Spearhead Company box, and it represents the Battle of the Bulge and later battles, and gives access to the upgraded options and the later war American tanks. Whilst this is another box based on Shermans, it has many different flavours of Shermans, and the platoons are mixed in late war forces. This means you might see a jumbo with an Easy 8, an M4, and maybe a 76mm, all in the same platoon. So it can get quite cool, but a bit complicated as well. The Bulge Armoured Spearhead Company box comes with 2 Pershings, 4 Easy 8s, 4 Chaffies, 1 Jumbo, 3 Calliopes, 1 Recon platoon with 2 Jeeps and 2 M8 armoured cars, and 1 platoon of Paras. The box retails at £90 recommended retail price, but the contents of the box come to £169, so therefore there's a £79 saving for this box. The formation as provided in the box is actually a reasonably sturdy formation, as it ends up having 4 combat platoons and a HQ, although the Pershings in a unit of 2 isn't my favourite to say the least. It takes only 1 loss and you could potentially lose both due to last stand checks. However, the formations, the HQ being probably 2 easy 8s, then your first combat platoon being 2 easy 8s and 1 jumbo, then the unit of 2 Pershings, a unit of 3 Chaffies, and the 3 Calliopes. So altogether that does make an area where you've got 3... Altogether that does make 4 combat platoons. So your formation will probably not break due to last stand checks. In terms of formation last stand, it'll be quite hard to break, which is quite reasonable for a starter box. The M26 Pershing, or Pershing, I've heard both. Please, if you know the actual answer, just tell me in the comments so I stop that sounding like a fool. So, the M26. It's new to the Western Allies. It's America's answer to a Tiger, with front armour 9 and anti-tank rating of 14. Basically America's Panther, right? Only the Panther has now got better with our front armour 10, and there are plenty of bigger German cats hanging around, and other nasty beasts such as the Jagdtiger. So, maybe too little too late in that regard. The set contains 2 Pershings, which, as I've already discussed, if they take a single casualty, they'll need to take a last stand check. Instead of building your 2 Pershings, you could build 1 T26 Super Pershing with its front armour of 13. Its side armour is only 6 though, so it remains very vulnerable to flank attacks. Be careful. Also, it has an anti-tank rating of 18, so honestly, it's going to punch a hole through most Axis vehicles on the front. So, the star of the film Fury, the M4E8 Easy 8 tank. The first positive is it has the 76mm gun, meaning it's anti-tank 12. It can crack open Panthers and Tigers on the front. It's also gifted with front armour 7, the same as the Sherman 76mm. Its smooth ride rule allows it to move so far before being forced to take the penalty of +1 from stabilisers. This could also be combined with a blitz move. Those are the positives. The big negative, however, is that it costs an additional 2 points for each Easy 8, so you really have to weigh up whether that's worth it, especially when you might be mixing into your platoon other types of Shermans which won't have that rule. The next tank is the Sherman Jumbo, and it's kind of linked with the Easy 8 as they would be in the same platoons. It's a weird tank with its front armour 11, and it has the role of being a bullet magnet. Use the mistaken target rule, you can direct as many of the anti-tank rounds onto its front armour 11 as possible to soak them up. It also has the option to take either a 75mm or a 76mm gun, so that's very much down to your choice. The Chaffee provides you with the Spearhead rule and some mobility. It's basically a Stuart, but it's armed with a 75mm gun. Whilst that gun is obsolete in a medium tank role, this is not a medium tank. This is a fast light tank. The Chaffee is able to move rapidly, get onto the flank, and begin harassing enemy vehicles on their side armour. Whilst it's unlikely to win any stand-up fights, there is at least the chance that it could knock out a Panzer IV on the front if it's forced into that role, but its armour does leave a lot to be desired at Armour 4. Its tactical move 12 is one of its genius, and it also has the Spearhead, allowing you to extend your deployment zone in those sort of missions. The Calliope. These tanks are expensive in points, likely overcosted. However, there's something extremely satisfying putting down that salvo template and pinning everything in sight. Especially against infantry lists, you'll basically be able to take a large section of the board and keep it pinned. However, not talking about the practicalities of it, I kind of prefer the 105 Sherman over the Calliope. It's also worth noting that if you're not a fan of the Calliope from this box, it's an upgrade kit. So you could build these Calliopes as regular Shermans or 105 howitzer Shermans if you prefer. The paratroopers are expensive for what they can achieve, but they are good in both the defence and attack. The fact they come with a mortar does help a little bit, as it'll allow you to at least keep pinning down opposing troops. The reconnaissance platoon of 2 Jeeps and 2 M8 Greyhounds is quite solid. It's a recon choice that gives you Spearhead and also acts as an artillery observer and it has its own 60mm mortar for pinning down troops. So there's a lot it can do, but it doesn't have smoke. Overall, I think this box is an okay starting point for playing American Bulge, but you will need more Shermans to make the platoon stronger in this box. I'd suggest either a box of jumbos to have an additional jumbo in your unit, or if you've already got your Hit the Beach Shermans, to be honest, you're laughing. That would be a good combo. I wouldn't recommend getting multiples of this box though. All the starter armies discussed in this video come with an A5 mini rulebook and the unit cards needed to field the units suggested in the box. We hope you've enjoyed this video and have a better understanding of the American starter sets and their value. If you enjoy our content and find it useful, then please consider subscribing to the channel. We also appreciate any feedback you have for our videos and would love to read your thoughts in the comments. Until next time everyone, goodbye for now.